welcome to Dialed In. I'm Don KNabe, Los Angeles County Supervisor for the 4th District. Since 1996, I have been blessed and honored to work for the 10 million people of this great county. One thing I have noticed as I get out and talk to the people across my district is that a lot of people just don't know what the county does. They don't know our programs or the services we provide, or even sometimes they confuse us with the city of Los Angeles. I always tell folks, you can pick a letter from A to Z, and there's a service that the county provides in between. And thanks to the good people here at Charter Communications, I'd like to take some time each month to explain who we are, what we do, and most importantly, why you should care. I also hope you'll enjoy hearing from interesting guests from the political world, arts, academia, sports, all those who make Los Angeles County a unique and special place to live, work, and play. In my time in office, I've spent a lot of time on that side of the interview table, so I'm excited to be sitting in this chair asking the questions. I hope you will enjoy the show. My very first guest ever is Dan Schnurr, the director of the Jesse M. Unruh Institute of Politics at USC. Dan is one of California's top political strategists, respected on both sides of the aisle. He spent a lot of time in politics. He served as John McCain's director of communications for his 2000 presidential campaign, and 5 years as Governor Pete Wilson's spokesman. Dan, it's great to have you here. Again, thank you for being my very, very first guest. I appreciate you taking the time to do it, and congratulations. Recently, there was an incredible article about you in the Los Angeles Business Journal and your experience. So, as you know, part of my job here is to sort of let the world know about what Los Angeles County does, but there's a bigger picture, and I think we should start right there. So, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited, and I'm flattered to be your first guest.
Well, very good. Thank you. Well, as we all know, recently, and last several weeks, the president was inaugurated once again for a second term. Obviously, there's talk of immigration reform and all the other issues confronting America, confronting the president and his last term. So what do you think this is going to bring? What do you think is going to happen in Washington in the short term, and then we'll get into the long term?
Well, immediately after the inauguration, the buzz in Washington among the pundits and the commentators was how much more aggressive President Obama had been in this inaugural address. You remember 4 years ago, as I know your viewers do, he talked about the two parties coming together and finding common ground. And this message was a little bit more, hey, no more Mr. Nice Guy. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I think he really does feel the ability to assert himself a little bit more on a number of issues, on climate change, on gun issues. He's got a real challenge, not only with Republicans, but with a lot of conservative Democrats. So the real issue, I think, to keep an eye on with Obama is immigration. That's where I think he feels he can really leave a legacy. And with Republicans, like Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush and others, he feels like while it's not a slam dunk, there's a potential for some real broad-based immigration reform. That's the issue, one way or another, that people are going to remember Barack Obama for once he's done.
And I think, don't you think, as from a bipartisan standpoint, that's probably one of the few options available? I mean, we still have the fiscal cliffs, we still have the debt ceilings, all the other short-term and long-term arguments are going to be there. Probably the reason that they have a 13% rating back there in Congress is going to be difficult. But from immigration reform, do you see that as a potential bipartisan issue?
I think it is, just for the reason you mentioned. Number one, it is a critically important issue. But number two, given the options he has for potential bipartisan cooperation, the other issues that you listed are going to be a much, much tougher road to hoe. Immigration's not easy, but at least you can see the path there.
And I think all the attempts at immigration reform over the years have really started on a bipartisan basis, whether they wind up there or not. But some of the other issues that were raised, obviously, in the speech, it's going to be a much more difficult road to hoe, as we mentioned. Let's take a few steps to west and to Sacramento. A very unique situation there. First of all, the governor recently said, hey, we've had all these debt crisis over the many, many years. Now we have a surplus. What are your feelings on that surplus?
Well, I think surplus is in the eye of the beholder, because as you know, and a lot of your constituents know, the state still has a lot of outstanding debt, and it certainly has a huge amount of financial obligation as it relates to pensions for public employees, and that's not really something that's been addressed in Sacramento, at least not fully yet. That said, the governor bypassing Proposition 30 last year has created at least some breathing room on the year-to-year budget. And K through 12 education, and to some degree higher education, are going to see the benefits of that initiative. The real test going forward is the Democrats' legislative allies see all that money from Prop 30. And not only do they want to spend it, but a lot of them were talking about further tax increases right after the election. And Jerry Brown made it very clear to anyone who had listened right after the election, we raised taxes once, we're not going to do it again. So Brown is the voice of caution in Sacramento, and I think the most important thing for your viewers to watch up there this year is to see how effectively Jerry Brown can rein in his strongest supporters who want to move forward a lot more aggressively than I think he thinks is appropriate right now.
Well, even since he was elected, he obviously has had a majority.
Yeah.
Now he has a super majority in both houses. How, that's going to play out very uniquely, I would think. I mean, he's going to have to rein in something because before they sort of had to listen to him and work with him. Now they said, wait a minute, Governor, we have the super majority. We want to do this. So how do you think that plays out, the super majority? How do you think they're going to use it? How do you think the governor's going to use it?
Well, think about it. If you're a Democratic legislator, sitting outside your office door right now are a whole bunch of interests who've been donating to your campaigns over the years, who've seen their budgets cut year after year after year after year, and they want that money back. And just as you're getting ready to meet with all those interests, the governor's on the phone saying, don't spend that money. That's a tough place to be. Jerry Brown said we don't want to raise taxes. What's being talked about in the legislature is not so much of a direct tax increase out of Sacramento, but lowering the threshold for tax increases at the local and county level. My guess is what you see in the months ahead in Sacramento is an effort to lower the threshold to make it easier for voters in local and county government to raise taxes by a popular vote.
Well, I know one play that's in play right now, as an example, Measure J, the transportation tax, was defeated. 2/3 required, 2/3 vote required. Immediately, as soon as the session opened, there's a couple bills in there to make that a simple majority. That would be a huge end run. The problem is, at this particular point, with the super majorities in both houses, that is a very unique possibility based on why some people have talked about raising taxes. I would think that would be a real disservice to the voters, and could lead to other ballot initiatives. I mean, I'm not a believer in government by initiative, but those are the kinds of things that really raise the ire of the taxpayer to simplify the ability to raise taxes. And so I think, and then that's why I was asking about the supermajority. Those are the kinds of things that I think we need to be on the outlook for. And on the other hand, it's a real possibility.
Well, that's right. And again, I don't think you see a vote out of Sacramento to raise taxes, but to make it easier to lower the threshold for voters to do it for themselves. Governor Brown has not said whether he supports that or not. But again, if I had to guess, I'd say that's going to be the first significant effort you see from these supermajorities. Democrats saying we should let voters make their own decisions, and the remaining Republicans up there saying all you're doing is trying to raise taxes through the back door.
And I agree. I mean, from a local perspective, someone that's involved with the largest county in America, whether it's a county, a city, a school district, community college district, obviously those are, I think they sort of may look at that as sort of a payback, say, wait a minute, we keep raiding your treasuries, and oh, by the way, you have to balance your budget. We don't, but we're going to borrow on the backs of all of you. And they say, well, wait a minute, here's your opportunity. You support this, lowering the threshold, and you can raise your own taxes. But everybody forgets about all the taxes that you have already in place. So
yeah, we'll call it a tax increase by remote control.
Exactly. There's another area that you and I share a passion on, and that's educating your young people from a public administration, public service standpoint, and your role with the Jesse Unruh Institute. What you feel amongst the students right now about the public process, public service, public administration kind of a situation?
Boy, it's fascinating, and I can't tell you how exciting it is to work with young people who really are interested in public service and civic engagement. And by the way, I know you've agreed to come to campus yet again to spend some time with our students, and we're very grateful for that. You see statistics, your viewers will see statistics that show that young people, that my students' age 18 to 25, vote in smaller numbers than any other generation in America today. But the other part of the story is this. Those same young people who vote in smaller numbers, they volunteer their time back into their community in much larger numbers, not only than any other generation in America today, but in recent history. And I suspect what's happening there is a lot of the students see the tremendous amount of money in politics, and they think there's super PACs over here on the right, there's super PACs over there on the left. These guys get 10 million votes each. I only get one vote. So maybe my vote doesn't make that much difference. And if I want to make change happen, I'm going to go out and work in the community and do some good. And what my job is, and this is the reason I'm so grateful to have you coming to talk with them also, is to let them know that volunteering is noble. But you can only read to so many kids. You can only serve so many meals to so many seniors. If you really want to make change happen on a broad scale, you got to come inside the gates and get involved in the process. And a lot of them see it. Our goal is to make sure they all do.
Well, that's great. I mean, the public process right now is pretty ugly.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that can happen is discourage young people to get involved. And your efforts there at the Jesse Unruh Institute, Dan, we appreciate it. I am extremely grateful for the fact that you were my very first guest, have taken time out of your schedule to be with us here today. I want to thank you, wish you the best, and look forward to our paths crossing again soon.
Thanks for having me. Fight on.
Thank you. Welcome back to Dial In. This segment is called In the Sandbox. It's about solving problems by working together across the aisle. We hear a lot about partisan bickering at the national level, and I think it's a big reason why Congress entered its latest session with a 14% approval rating. On the Board of Supervisors, we can't get tied up in the red versus blue debate. We are the ultimate safety net for over 10 million residents who depend on us for the services they desperately need. While it's not always a picnic, our board works together to ensure that the needs of our various communities are met. At the local government level, in big cities and small communities, elected officials on both sides of the aisle are working together to fix problems, because they have to. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is known for his no-nonsense style. He also recognizes very much that he has to work with the other side to meet the needs of his state. Take a look at this clip about some New Jersey Supreme Court appointments he is making. The seats have been vacant and unfilled for a long time, which means the needs of the people of New Jersey are not being met. Enter bipartisanship.
These two nominees represent a political compromise on my part, a reaching out across the aisle to the Democrats in an attempt to get our court fully staffed in the way that our Constitution envisions. I hope that with putting forward these candidates, the Senate will put aside politics now, and I am willing to be the one who reaches my hand out in compromise first.
Look, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, red, blue, or green. We are all Americans, and we have a job to do, and that is to serve the residents in our communities. I hope our elected officials in Congress take note of what is happening across America in all of our communities. Enough fiscal cliffs, debt ceilings, sequestration cuts. Let's put our self-interest in politics aside and get something done. Welcome back to Dial In. My next guest is Chief Executive Officer of the largest county in the country. He is responsible for overseeing a budget of $24 billion that touches the lives of over 10 million Los Angeles County residents and over 30 county departments. With the economy continuing to struggle and the rollout of the Affordable Care Act, Los Angeles County has some big issues ahead of us. Here to shed some light on how Los Angeles County operates, I'd like to welcome our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Bill Fujioka. So welcome, Bill.
Well, good morning, Supervisor.
Nice to see you.
Same.
A little bit less, a little bit more relaxing atmosphere than on Tuesdays at the at the board meetings. Obviously, Bill, many people know what the CEO of a company does. What they may not know is what the CEO of the County of Los Angeles does. Maybe you can give us an idea, share a few thoughts about what your responsibilities are, the magnitude of that. For those of us that do know, we appreciate your leadership, but maybe you can share with our audience exactly what you, as a CEO, do for the County of Los Angeles.
Well, I've had that question asked to me before, and that my job requires me to wear multiple hats. I'm the chief financial officer for the County of Los Angeles. I'm responsible for directing the activities of about 29 of the county's 37 departments. I'm also the chief negotiator and the chief staff person for the Board of Supervisors. What's different between myself and a CEO of a major company, the CEO of a major company has a singular focus, probably a singular product line, whereas at any given time, I can have 10 major projects going on at the direction of the board that would take us everywhere from health to capital programs, public safety, and even our welfare programs. It's a job that has a multitude of responsibilities.
Well, one of the things that I always talk about is that we in the County of Los Angeles are the ultimate safety net.
Absolutely.
And that these programs that we are oversee and operate are operated programs by the county, not mandated or created by the county, but federal and state kinds of mandates. So maybe you could share, a lot of times people just don't know on both sides where the revenues come from and how we spend our money. Maybe you could give our viewers an idea where the big pieces of the revenue are and where the big pieces of the expenditures are.
Well, the majority of our revenue comes from the federal government and from the state. Just to break it down a little bit, in the large categories, about $6.3 billion comes from locally generated revenue sources like property tax or sales tax, but $5 billion comes from the federal government. About 4.8 comes from the state government. And we also have money coming through our special districts, like the fire district or the flood control district, in the tune of about $6 billion. And if you look at the major spending categories, about $6 million of that is for health services. And that's not just hospital services, that's public health, it's also mental health. Then you have about $5 billion goes to public safety. And some people equate public safety only with the sheriff's department, which you must include the district attorney, our public defender, our alternate public defender, probation, and even our animal control department.
And our jails.
Absolutely.
How would you make it understandable for all of us or for our viewers out there as it relates to the impact of the state and federal kinds of issues that we have to deal with? One is our advocacy side of it, how it impacts our revenue base, how we start out sometimes one way, working with our partners in the state and federal government, and where we wind up the other way. Maybe you could give us an example, home supporting services, all those kinds of issues that create a very flexible budgetary difficulty for all of us at the local level.
Well, let's emphasize the local level. We are the safety net for the citizens of the County of LA. And some people think that safety net is only for those who have no insurance when it comes to health care. But we run the largest trauma system in the county. To a large extent, that's funded through the money we get from the federal government and the state government. In fact, the majority of our funds comes from the federal government and the state government. I joke with friends to say the state and feds it's like they plan a meal and they cook the meal. If they do something wrong, we get the indigestion. We get the problems at the local level. We have to deal with it, because if you talk to the average citizen and you say, we try to explain to them the federal government cut the budget, they'll say, no, you cut it. You're responsible for it. And so we are the provider of services on the street. We do everything for the citizen when it comes to public health, when it comes to ensuring that communicable diseases are addressed and controlled. TB is addressed and controlled. But the safety net aspect of our public health program, our health services program, is an absolute critical element of the health care for not only the poor, but for the entire County of Los Angeles.
Particularly on the public health side.
Absolutely.
The other issue right now, we always seem like new issues come up. And obviously September 11th changed the life of America, but it also changed our responsibilities as it relates to Homeland Security and our job to oversee and to coordinate those kinds of activities. Maybe you could share a few things as it relates to our emergency services and preparation and Homeland Security that was just one other niche that was added to our level of responsibility.
Well, that particular issue, I was with the city of Los Angeles when 9/11 happened, and it changed all of our lives. It's changed how we view public safety responsibilities, but also changed how we view public health and health services to ensure the county is ready. And I mean the entire county, not just people hear about the county, and it's hard for them to equate what that means, but we have 88 cities. The county of Los Angeles is not just the city of LA. It's 88 cities who are all equally important. But to ensure that we have systems in place to prevent any critical incident from happening, and then should it happen, to be able to respond to it is our responsibility. So we work with a multitude of our departments work together. Our services within our departments work together to ensure that we're ready in case something happens.
And our mutual aid agreements are our national model now.
Absolutely.
And that's set up, I mean, even through the Homeland Security folks. And a matter of fact, we had as I remember, we had a bioterrorism drill that was set for February after that September, planned long before the September 11th, because one of the efforts that we've always tried to do, even during good times or bad times, is have the money for training and our mutual aid agreements between all the fire, police departments throughout Los Angeles County. And speaking of Los Angeles, sometimes I tell everyone, sometimes we get confused with the city of Los Angeles, but the city of Los Angeles is one of 88 cities in the county, as you mentioned, over 1 million population in our unincorporated areas. You work for both. What's the difference? I mean, what's the difference between that major city responsibility that you had and now the major county responsibility is our CEO?
The major difference, county's better managed.
Good answer.
That's a good answer, but the main difference for a general public is that a city provides the classic municipal services like street repair, sanitation, sewer, and some of the public safety services. We, because of our responsibility for the unincorporated areas, we're also the provider of those municipal services. But separate from LA City, we provide healthcare, we provide all the hospital services, public health, mental health, welfare, child support services. We provide the major health, mental health, and social services for the entire county of Los Angeles.
It's a big difference, and I think that's the
huge
responsibility that people don't understand there between counties and cities. But they have to be our partners as well too, and I think we have a good relationship with all of our 80. We do have a lot of overlapping responsibilities. They may take care of a planning issue, but we have that major health issue. So with that, what's it like working for 5 wonderful people?
It's a challenge.
Challenge. Good answer. Hey, Bill, I really appreciate you being here and taking the time to join me and be one of my first guests on the show. You do a great job. We appreciate your leadership.
Thank you very much.
We have a lot of struggles, Affordable Care Act, a lot of things coming up, but I know that you'll bring us all together, work together, and we'll do a good job. So, Bill, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to Dial In. This segment is called Just Fix It. It's about the stuff that drives me nuts, the stuff that just gives government a very bad name. Unfortunately, today's example comes from right here in our own county house, and that's the Clean Water, Clean Beaches initiative. You might have heard a little about this. Last December, during the busiest mail time of the year, parcel owners across Los Angeles County received one of these. Yep, kind of looks like junk mail, doesn't it? So many people just threw it out. In fact, there was a protest ballot for a new parcel fee. We needed over half the parcel owners to protest, over 1 million owners, or the initiative would move forward to a mail-in election. One of the many issues I have with this process is that there was no online or email tool to protest. Come on, it's 2013. But let me be clear. I want clean water, and I think everyone else does. But this thing was such a mess, some huge organizations like Metro never even received notices. How about this? Instead of just gathering a big pot of money, we tell the voters how it's going to be spent. People have a right to know what they're paying for. Let's put an end date on this fee. And let's also not double tax the people who are already investing a lot of dollars to do the right and legal things. It's scheduled to come back to the board on March 12th. Let's just fix it. Thanks again for tuning in to the first episode of Dialed In with Don KNabe. I really appreciate you watching, and I hope you learned a little bit about what Los Angeles County is all about. Before we close, this is a segment called They Said What? Courtesy of Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper. I've given a lot of speeches in my time, and boy, do I feel his pain.
We can all be lamplighters. Working together, we can punch holes in some pretty big, oh, Jesus. It's the crescendo.
Thanks so much for joining me today, and thanks again to Charter. I look forward to seeing you next month with a brand new Dialed In.